down to it, our bones are such a small part of who we are.
Ever seen Gary Larson's joke of the boneless chicken ranch?
No?
Shows little puddles of chicken around there. Because to point out the idea that, of course, one of the main things the bone does is give you structure, And when you prep fish, for example, they're hard to prep because their bones don't touch each other. You see, because they swim in the water, they don't need all that structural support that we do. We are fighting gravity all the time, as your structures do. Where in this case, you need those bones.
How did you learn this? How does a chemistry professor know this kind of?
Well, I put together a marvelous place called the Bone Room, where I could have very intelligent, interesting people like yourself to come in and visit me, and I pick their brains and read. I breed, don't read much. But of course, what you do is you get excited about things.
Yeah.
Because unlike a flat screen, which to me has its limitations, we actually come in here and you have a horse that you can handle.
Yeah.
And you can think of horsiness there, and you can pick it up and look at it, and it makes you ask questions like, why are these teeth shaped that way? I give a course on teeth, for example.
Oh, yeah?
And of course, the more you have around here, the more questions you can think about. Because one of the things I tell my employees, and I hope happens here, is that I hope that people come in and leave somewhat changed. And one of the ways I want them to be changed is to look at that antelope skull right up there and not have to think of only that it's dead and feel sorry for it. Because you can do that if you want to.
Yeah.
That's one thing you can do.
Yeah.
But you could think of the bone, you could think of the structure, you could think of the turbinate, you could think how the horn is formed. You could be an artist and think of the negative space. You could be an architecture and think how it's built and how it holds together, and when those horns compress, what happens with the skull. There's a ton of things you can think about. Almost unlimited number of things if you apply yourself enough to the different sciences and different ways of viewing that particular skull. And so I have a nice, beautiful place with marvelous employees that I get to come to work to. And so all these are just brain stimulants is what they are.
Must be a nice way to live.
It is a nice way to live. I'm a lucky guy.
You are. You're a very lucky man.
Only way I'd be luckier is if I was an architect, right?
No.
Okay. Where are we down on architects lately, huh?
But you see I have to say for me, the kind of architecture I do is directly parallel with what you just said. What fascinates me and what makes it very stimulating to do architecture is to take this kind of knowledge and to apply it to human beings. And so I find, my world is very fascinating that way. But that's very atypical compared to a commonplace architect, which we're not taught to think this way. We're not taught to inquire about those kinds of things. In fact, we're not taught about nature at all. And I think that's much, that we've lost a lot because of that.
You're always going outside the box. I know you about that.
Always.
You're always going outside
there's so
the
much.
box.
Well, everything that's worth
or in the
looking
box
at
if
is
it's a nice
outside
box. There's a good box here.
Yeah, the box is no fun. It's boring.
That's right.
Yeah. So this is fascinating. Just see, this is an open book of knowledge in itself.
Absolutely.
This is a school.
It is.
What you have here is a school.
Absolutely.
That's filled with knowledge.
And this is one of the sad things many times, and that is I have people come in here, like we had Cabrillo College come in, the anthro course, and I gave them a talk next door, and I talked about skulls and so forth, but I also talked about education.
Yeah.
And talked about the fact that colleges are marvelous places.
Yeah.
You went to Cal,
Yeah.
and people get a lot of knowledge from there, but unfortunately a lot of things what they don't learn is how to learn. So they get out of school, what do I do now, you see? And so what this is sort of your continuation course right here. This is your continuation course, and when I have employees and interview them, I'm interested in people who want to continue their education.
Yeah.
I'm happy if they have some education, and that varies tremendously, to bring to bear. But I want them to get excited about something, go home and read about it. And let's see, the neatest thing I got in, which I guess is a nice structure, is this guy right up there.
Which one?
Right there.
That's
an elephant bird egg.
Can I handle that?
Sure, if you're careful. Just watch where you step there. So the elephant bird egg is a ratite, which of course is the group of the very large flightless birds like the rheas and ostriches and the cassowaries and emus, except this was even huger. It was like 9 feet tall. and only died out about, let's say, 40,000 years ago. But when the sailors first landed on Madagascar, I'm sure they looked at that and said, tastes like chicken. And indeed it did taste like chicken. So pretty soon it was extinct. So you can find areas where they're hatched out and you find shards of the shell.
So this was these were shell
those
shards.
Are real shell shards
together.
put together, though.
Wow.
They were fitted, you see.
Yeah.
Now sometimes you find where you can get some more fitting, and those are much more expensive. I couldn't afford that when I didn't know, how big your checkbook was for this show, so I didn't get the really expensive one. But okay, here's a really neat way of making something too, and that is this is actually a hippo tooth. And one of the characteristics of this hippo tooth is that it has an enamel coating. So if you look right in here, this is ivory, and all around here is enamel. And the reason it is, so as you wear against the enamel surface, so you have the toughness underneath and the structural toughness and bendiness slightly at least in the compression of the ivory, but you have this enamel on here to make it very sharp as it wears down. So in effect, you wear it sharp.
I also noticed the twisting, and so that structurally, what that does is throw stress and strain off tangentially with it.
It does.
And many things in nature are created that way to do just that.
Exactly.
Like the DNA molecule, for instance.
Well, another funny thing about this too, and that is that it not only does that, but it stresses. And so when you dry it out sometimes, I had one time explode. It jumped up in the air. It split right down the middle and jumped up in the air, just relieving the stress. So Diana has two marvelous things as she comes in. She has the cast of the narwhal tusk, and it has the marvelous little twist that Eugene was talking about.
Yes. That all the things in nature that are long and narrow like that seem to have this growth. I think it's a structural. It gives it structural integrity and preserves its rigidity, because when you hit against it, all the stress and strain wraps around and it gets thrown off tangentially.
There's been a lot of argument about what the narwhal tusk was used for. It could be for battling and so forth.
Yeah.
But what they discovered is that there's little teeny nerve endings through the whole thing.
Yes.
Actually, it may be a sensor pole.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it is.
The other thing interesting about it is that, of course, there's only one tusk. Only one side grows and the other one doesn't, because they're asymmetric.
One side grows.
Yeah. See, this comes off a canine. It's just a canine gone crazy. And so it just goes on one side.
Wait a minute. It comes out of its mouth?
Oh yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Comes right out of its mouth.
Just a tooth gone wild.
Wow.
The asymmetry is interesting.
A tooth gone wild. Now why
And of course
would
it's
nature,
ivory.
Why would nature do that?
Well, that's what any tusk is. An elephant tooth is actually, I think, an incisor, but it's a tooth gone wild too for other uses. Sabers are just a tooth gone wild too.
And where is this one from?
That's from Africa, probably out of South Africa, Kenya, and they get probably a couple feet long. You look inside a leopard tortoise and start looking at all the bones.
Yeah.
What you discover is that you wonder how in the world the scapulas, which are on your back, got on the inside. Imagine you're going to evolve an animal where you fuse the ribs. Well, that leaves your scapula on the outside. Can't be. It's got to go on the inside. Only recently have they figured out that during the embryologic stage, that scapula makes a twist as an embryo to get inside the shell. It really goes through a twisty thing.
Really?
But one of the neat things about this is, you see, this is a case where you have a growing shell. For example, that's a shell seam. So there's a bunch of plates here that grows at the edge.
Yeah.
And of course, this is a calcium hydroxyphosphate shell. But on the surface, you have these shells growing at the same time. Yet on the round, but yet this is a kind of keratinaceous material here. So you have keratin and bone here growing at the same time to keep the whole thing together, yet the seams are different. Because as you know, you don't want your seams in the same place as far as strength goes. So it keeps the whole thing strong. So if you look how this thing grew, for example, there's the original scoot of the tortoise.
Yep.
So you see, to accommodate here, he didn't grow much on this side, but he grew an awful lot on this side. So when you have a captive tortoise, in fact, you get a white line around here which shows the growth as it grows. And when you get a tortoise and feed it too much, these things pop up because somehow they grow more than the undershell. You get a deformed animal.
I'm also looking at the shape here. It's interesting that the geometry is done in such a way that forces are distributed around the shape itself, and even the bottom side. So if you hit one place, it follows the cavity of the geometry.
And if you have a jaw and are chewing, you see.
Yeah.
And also if an elephant steps on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's a problem in South Africa. You know? And of course, they just pull everything in, and there you go.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate house, Eugene.
Yeah, I know. In fact, did you know that if you make a house, if you have the same square footage, let's say 1,000 square feet, and you use a domical shape like this versus a box shape like what we typically do, you use we use 33% less materials with the domical shape than you will with the box shape.
Right.
Yeah. And be several times stronger.
Right. And the way of looking at that is minimum surface area. Like when you have a drop that falls, it goes into a circle.
Yep.
Because that minimizes the surface area.
Yep. Spherical. Yep.
When you have those corners, well, then you lose energy through the surface.
Yeah.
So you want to minimize surface area as far as heat transfer through the walls.
That's right. Yeah. Also,
I'm really surprised that you never made a shell for you to wear, frankly. I think you'd look really good in a tortoise shell.
Well, I think for humans, though, is there a real... There's not really much need to...
Ninja Turtles do it. Ninja Turtles?
Okay.
Well, you know, they're making... Actually, there's a lot of exoskeletons that are made.
This was here,
sure.
right?
There's a lot of exoskeletons that are made now for military purposes, you know, like Waldo issues. Okay, now that's a cast, but it's a cast of a humongous shark tooth.
Well, yes.
And that's a megalodon.
Megalodon?
Megalodon.
Ichthyosaur?
No, Ichthyosaur was not a shark. It was actually a reptile, swimming reptile.
Okay.
But this is the largest shark that ever lived. In fact, that's the largest tooth I've ever seen from this shark, except it's a cast.
Wow.
Again, I didn't know if you were coming with your checkbook, so I didn't want to get the real one there. And that one's $80, so the real one would probably be tens of thousands, I would guess. But as you may know, there are more shark fossils than anything else because they keep biting and they keep coming in and coming in. You can look at a shark jaw if you like, but they conveyor belt in.
Well, architecturally, what's interesting is that, you know, when you put force on the tooth, the greatest force is following the shape on the outside, and that's where the roots are. So, you know, as this bites into something, the shape accommodates that force by reinforcing the edges instead of the middle. Whereas we would probably say, oh, well, let's just make a triangle and make it all even. But nature, of course, thinks of where is the maximum force being placed, and then adapts accordingly. So
and you have to think too how this tooth is used. For example, we use our teeth for chewing.
Yeah.
Sharks don't chew.
Yeah.
They just bite off hunks and swallow.
Yes.
So you need knives. You don't need mortar and pestle.
Yeah. This would be a very interesting idea for a tall building too, because you know the building's weight is on the outside, and only needs to be reinforced from the outside. So you have this hollow area that people can pass through or use for something else. You know, that's an incredible structure.
So what else is back here? Huh? Of course, there's some nice mammal skulls of different kinds.
Let's see. Do these skulls? I remember once we talked about how mammals have in their nostrils. They have that.
They have called turbinates.
Yes, that heat the.
It's a heat exchange and a water exchange system, exactly. And birds have it too, but not reptiles. So the question is why? Well, there's a simple answer, and that is that reptiles have a metabolism like a tenth of mammals. So they don't need to have as much of a problem of losing heat by respiration because they respirate so little.
Really?
So no reptile has turbinates.
Even a lizard has a much slower metabolism.
Absolutely. Because they're cold-blooded. They don't have to, we have to keep our bodies warm all the time. And like
then you'd think that reptiles would live longer, but they don't seem to than mammals.
Well, some do. Tortoises,
some do. Tortoises,
Turtles,
tortoises.
It's a mixed bag. Now that's very interesting, Di, because this is actually a relative of the hyena. And I use this as a fun thing to test people on. There was an anthropologist came in the other day, and her husband said, "Oh, she knows mammal skulls so well." So I got this out, and I say, "Okay, don't look at the tag. There's 3,000 kinds of mammals, as I recall. What species is this?" So she looked at it and said, "Well, you know, look at these teeth on the side, because the key is to look how limited the cheek teeth are." See, cheek teeth are very important to most all mammals because they use it for either slicing, like cats do, the carnassials, or the molars of, say, the wolves or those animals.
Okay.
And so then you look at that, and these are almost gone, almost gone. So you have to think, what do you think that guy eats? So the answer is they eat termites. And they actually snuffle termites in their mouth, and you notice how the mouth is fairly big here.
Yeah.
They still want canines to fight with, but basically don't do any chewing at all. They just snuffle termites in through this mouth and this tongue and eat them right on down. So, of course, as you know, this is my favorite fossil in all the world. You can forget the ducklings here for the moment. We're just having a little fun with ducklings here.
Hyena fossil.
But this thing shows you how to build a really great animal. For one thing, these are carnassials. You see the wear there?
Yeah.
These are slicers. If you pick up a cat over there, it has the same exact carnassial. So if you want to bite off a hunk of meat and swallow it, that's what you need. However, the real hallmark of a hyena, what makes a hyena, are these teeth. If you feel the width of that tooth, it's very conical and not sharp. It's worn. In fact, that's what cracks the bones. So if you're a hyena, you have a niche of eating things that, say, a lion can't do. A lion cannot crack the bones usually. So once you get the flesh off, it's done. This hyena can crack the bones and get in there.
Well, that's interesting because the bone is conical, whereas most teeth are sort of are wider on one end, in one dimension, and thinner on the other. But this is equal all around, which gives it the additional strength.
Absolutely.
Like these, yeah.
Yeah. And so when you look at hyenas, when you look at fossil hyenas, this is 7 million years old. Of course, again, it has to do with structure. It has to do with the power you can bring to bear to crush a bone and break a bone.
Yeah.
So you open up a whole new place to eat that other animals don't have.
Well, it's interesting because I designed a building, built a building that's conical shaped. It was meant to be earthquake resistant and be able to withstand forces from all directions. And that's why it was a conical shape. And that same principle is applied to these fossils. It's a universal way of thinking.
And so again, when you analyze, how an animal eats and what it does, for example, you see this is a very big cavity right up here.
Yeah.
And the reason is that that's the jaw muscles right there. And those muscles grab onto here, and that's the main power bite a hyena uses. Now there are muscles here called the masseters that come down, but they're smaller. While on a horse, there's a lot of chewing back and forth. These are huge. So you get a shifting there of the really bite, strong, clamp down strength of jaw muscles versus back and forth motion. So you can actually look at the animal, not only the teeth, but the structure of the muscles, and see what it's built for.
Yeah, and also noticing how big the jaw is compared to the whole skull.
It's very big,
It's
yes.
almost 50% of the whole skull.
Yeah, it's a very big skull. Yeah. See how a bone is made.
Good.
All right, now of course this is the femur, human femur,
Human femur.
which is the longest bone in the body, and this has been sliced so you can see what's inside. And look how spongy it is.
Wow.
So you see the surface is very hard, and that's what takes most of the strength. But what you've got to remember, all the important things that goes on inside a bone. This is a factory.
Yes.
That's where all of your red blood cells come from, your white blood cells come from, all your T cells, your immune cells are all made in there. That is, the stress and strain will change the shape of the bone. For example, this rugosity here you wouldn't see on a lot of bones. There was something this person did or didn't do that caused this kind of connection. So you're a workout man, and I know you're a strong guy, so as you work out, you actually change the shape of your bones.
Oh, yes.
And they triangulate, get bigger, and actually the muscle attachment that attaches onto the bone gets bigger too.
Yeah.
I remember I had a skeleton one time. I'm sorry I sold it, and I hate to say that, and I swear the bones were triangular. This guy must have worked in a quarry or something.
Yeah. No.
But as you go through life, all these changes occur because you remember that there's two kind of cells here. There are cells that reproduce and make other cells, and there are cells that die. So you have both things going on at once.
Wow, that's Wow, look at it. It's so spongy.
It's very spongy, and again, you think of the strength of it. But a lot of people come in and they want, say, something to carve, and they somehow think that this is going to be like millimeters
solid,
thick,
right,
but it isn't solid at all.
Yeah.
It's hard to find a solid bone. Of course, here's just a cross section, give you an idea of this.
Wow, it's fascinating, isn't it? And here we are trying to make buildings that are all just one solid, one solid material. Think of ways to create longevity in a structure, where the structure itself is a living thing. Wow.
And of course, when you use something like pre-stressed concrete, you start thinking about that, because you got to think, as with concrete, a lot of material is stronger under compression, as concrete is. So if you have that stretched inside, you make a two-phase system which is stronger.
Yeah, it's an amazing. Just this is an amazing design,
It is, and
because
of course,
we think of this clumsy, square girder kind of thing, whereas nature, accommodates all of the different stresses and strains that's required, and plus it's a factory for.
We forgot to invite nature. You know it.
Yeah, we've forgotten a lot of things.
And also, you can see it's a ground mammal too, because if we were looking at bird bones, for example, it'd be much lighter built. For example, over here is one of the ways you can run, which looks sort of funny, I think, but you can actually run on two toes. And this is an ostrich leg, but because this is not a flying animal, it's heavy. Doesn't need to fly. But it's really funny to see something running on two toes, and as you know, ostriches can run quite well.
Well, see, but as an architect, I can see if I wanted to make the most efficient pylon or a pillar post, I should make it like this, because this is, it's obviously it's minimizing the amount of materials, maximizing the strength. So you see, it's a kind of combination of a triangle and a circle together.
But of course, that would depend upon if you
beautiful.
have side forces on it, like wind, for example.
Yeah.
Because if you just have up and down forces, you get more toward symmetry.
Yeah.
But if you had a case where there was wind or something on one side, then that would skew your whole plan.
Right. I'm thinking for an interior post.
I see.
Yeah, and so obviously the ostrich is mainly dealing with top to bottom pressure.
And also, it needs speed. It really needs to outrun things, because it tastes like chicken. Rather like the elephant bird.
You ever tasted one?
Yeah, tastes like chicken. That's one way of going about it. And of course, here's another part of the animal, which has a really neat structure.
Yeah.
And of course, this makes a great Halloween mask. But you guys know what this is. This is a pelvis.
Yeah.
So this is that place where the ball fits into that I was mentioning. So this is the hips of probably a cow.
Yeah.
And of course, it has, if you think of the stress and strain, if you look here, you can see you've got to have muscle attachments here, because look at the growths there. And then of course, if you want something that actually has to be even stronger and is heavier, lift that.
What? Whoa. This is 15, 20 pounds.
Yes, it's very, so there's not much hole in the center of that, because you just have to have a strong guy here.
And this is bone from what?
That is a giraffe.
Giraffe.
Mm-hmm.
I never would have thought of that. Interesting. They look pretty heavy creatures.
Well, they are, and they're very tall, and you get a lot of compression. In fact, one of my favorite bones here, which I like, is this guy, which is really hard to figure out what it is almost. And I get a lot of emails from people that send me similar things they find on the beach. Have an idea?
Let's see. I want to see how
Mystery bone.
It looks like a bird bone.
It is.
I would say albatross or something.
No, it's an emu pelvis.
Emu pelvis.
And right here's where the legs go.
Interesting.
And see, here's where the vertebral column comes in.
Huh.
But isn't it a strange structure?
Yeah.
And again, it's rather dinosaur-like. But it's very light.
It's so light. Yeah.
Even though it's a flightless bird, the lightness still occurs there.
Yep.
And again, look at all the open structure here and holes for lightness and the compression of the bone on the outside.
Yeah.
So is that your new favorite?
Yeah. This
Okay.
is really. Well, this gives me a great idea for. We're doing a building that has posts in it, and I've thought of round tapered posts, but now I'm thinking this is better that you have this U shape.
Mm-hmm. That can be your giraffe building.
Yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm. Of course, your building doesn't have to run, but then.
That's true.
We also have a really neat giraffe vertebra over here. Because maybe you know this little factoid that most mammals, including us, have 7 neck vertebrae, and so do giraffe, even though it's much longer.
Wow. Interesting. Look at the difference.
Mhm.
So,
Well,
so
this
obviously
is the backbone, you see.
Yeah, that's a back.
Uh-huh.
And of course, the whale doesn't have to have the kind of flexibility.
Doesn't
neck
the flexibility nor the articulation either. So
Yeah.
this is really a nice ball and socket issue
Yeah.
here.
So it's interesting how the design adapts to the movement
Mhm.
needed.
Whale needs maximum flexibility,
Yeah.
and this needs also strength. You ever seen 2 giraffes fighting?
Yeah.
They neck fight.
Yes. I love the dynamicness of this. You know, it's
Mhm.
elements, but you know, there's just so much to it, and just
Mhm.
one bone. And I imagine that there's a socket, and then
Mhm.
there's all sorts of tensile muscles that are pulling and
Mhm.
pushing, keeping it.
And you can see
stable.
here there's a ball, and for example, if you look at my necklace,
Yeah.
this is a python vertebra.
Ah.
You see, a python is made especially to move side to side.
Uh-huh.
Because a python wants to be able to stretch over and bridge, yet have the strength, yet move side to side quickly. So this is actually almost a similar kind of thing. This doesn't need to go side to side as much, but in several directions, with strength and fortitude and maleness and anger and competition.
Does the female behave similarly or not?
I don't think so.
Huh.
Females are always nicer. You know that, Eugene.
Well, let's see. Except for the black widow, that, you know, there's certain species that seem kind of strange.
So, of course, now we're over the shells, and there's all sorts, of course, to think about. These are called sputtings up there, too. Grab that guy. What's the basket called, Di? The something or other basket?
Oh, the shrimp brine nest. This?
I think they do live in there, yeah.
Yeah, shrimp brine
Venus-
nest. Yeah,
Venus,
I had one. I've had one of these for years.
So unlike a lot of things, see, this is silica, because, see, this is
Yes.
calcium carbonate here. The other
Yeah.
things we're going to look at, but this
Yeah.
is just silica.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by this because this is actually a double. It's a double helix. It's a spiral one and then a spiral on the other side.
I didn't realize
So
that.
it's a DNA. Yeah, it's a DNA configuration.
Doesn't it feel nice and soft?
Oh
and,
yeah, and so light.
and you wouldn't think glass would be that way.
No. Yeah, do you know how it works? The baby shrimp brine are inside,
Okay.
and so when the plankton go through this netting,
Mm-hmm.
they eat it up. So it's then they grow. Yeah,
What a great system.
and then they escape before they get too big. So so the architecture actually helps them to survive.
You don't have that in your building, so
Yeah, I
you
know.
only
I've
escape
got a-
when you're a baby, and you got to stay when you're adult or something. Yeah.
Right. Huh.
Now let's see. We should look at this guy because he's just so gorgeous. But exactly what they use all those spines for, I'm not sure. But certainly, one good thing would be don't bite me. Thank you very much.
Is this found underwater?
Oh yeah, these are all sea creatures. So this is the what's it, Di? The Venus comb.
I can't see through your back, but I believe so.
Yes. So this is what mermaids comb their hair with. In case you meet a mermaid and she asks for a comb, this is what you need to give her. Now, again, what those are for isn't clear, but my first guess would be that it is against something that wants to bite it. Isn't that good?
There.
Oh, the weaverbird nest. Yes, our
Oh,
last
yeah, you
weaverbird nest, right up there.
Oh, yeah.
You can grab it down if you want to. Talk about weaverbird nests.
Yes.
That's right. I can see the penthouse now.
Mm-hmm.
Eugene's weaverbird building.
Yes. So this is hanging from a tree, dangling in midair,
You got it.
and the weaverbird flies in,
Mm-hmm.
and
You got to ask why the weaverbird did that, and of course he did that so that other birds and things lizards and snakes cannot get to him.
Yeah,
although some
yeah.
can. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I bet there's also something about air conditioning.
Could be. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow, it's amazing. And you know that when they first start out, they make pretty crappy Yes.
They need training?
Yeah,
They need architectural help?
They do.
They
Yeah,
don't have an architect.
practice.
That's a problem.
Well, yeah, you got to drop the plans. They're not following the plans. No, but they, sometimes a new young males will make the nest.
Oh, the males get to do
Yeah,
it, huh?
males
Whoa,
make the
I didn't
nest,
know that.
and then they invite females to take a look.
There you go.
And the female will not mate with them because they say, hey, this is a crappy job.
There you go.
You got to start all over.
That's evolution in
And-
action.
And they do. They take it apart and they start all
Or else
over.
they don't pass on their genes that year or ever.
Yeah, it's amazing. They actually take it apart and start all over. It's just, you would think they'd just leave it, for someone else to try to, and then start all over somewhere else.
You got to
But
fly
they
away
actually,
and gather that stuff, though. It's materials problem.
True. You're right about that. Yeah. But you see the thickness. Wow, we're talking about an inch thick.
I can imagine all the commensal parasites that live in there, too. I'll bet it was very interesting if you looked in that whole thing.
Well, maybe they eat the parasites.
Could be.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have an example here, but I'm going to tell you, if you don't know, what my archetypical animal is. I don't know if you have an animal that is
Your archetypical.
My archetypical animal. So see if you can guess what that would be. What animal do you think I am to identify with the most?
Boy, that's a tough question.
Well, I think you know.
It's got to be.
This
It's got to
animal.
be some kind of jolly animal. 'Cause you're a very jolly person.
Jolly person, like a laughing hyena.
No.
Well, I'll tell you, in case you don't know the animal, I'm a weaver bird.
Oh, are you?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Sure, I know the weaver
Yes.
bird.
Now, the weaver bird, as you know, there's many species.
Yeah.
And one of the characteristics of the weaver bird is they're pretty butt ugly. They are sort of black. No one's interested in looking
It's
at a
funny how
weaver.
you emphasize
if you
that
had,
part.
If you had,
No, they're
well,
not. They're not ugly.
I'm not that ugly. But then I'm not marvelously handsome. Plus, I'm old. Everyone's ugly when they're old. And so then the weaver bird, of course, as you know, builds bowers of sticks and things.
Yes.
And here's the kicker: every year he gets better. So he arranges his colors very beautifully right in front. And he sits there and waits. The female comes, look, pretty good. I sort of like that. He don't even care if he looks all old and wrinkly because he has really beautiful
it's all
stuff
about
out
the
front.
architecture.
It's all about architecture. That's right.
Yeah.
And so I'm a weaver bird in the sense that this is my nest right here.
Yeah.
So this is the way I attract,
Interesting.
not mates, it turns out. I don't have that much time and energy, but I attract all sorts of people like yourself
interesting.
into my nest.
I like that
so I can
metaphor.
enjoy it.
That's great. And you do.
I do.
You attract a lot of people.
I do.
Interesting. Yeah. We want to show the world that nature is an incredible resource of knowledge, and that's where true education comes from.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think with your participation today, I think we showed that spirit.
Good.
Yeah.
And again, you
'cause
can look at nature from so many ways. You can be
Yeah.
a poet, you can be an artist, you
Yes.
can be a scientist,
Yes.
and all these are different groups and ways of looking at things, but they don't have to contradict. And if you have a big enough brain, you can do it all at once.
And this is sort of a storehouse of nature's lessons, you might say. This is fascinating.
And of course, you should look at Eugene's architecture, and you also should come to the bone room so you can have fun.
Yes, you should.
Because we are in Berkeley, California. I should have said that. I didn't get my ad in. And my name is Ron Cauble.